Hey guys, Raw Real Talks Healing Edition, where today we're going to talk about being an empath and what that feels like and how do we get through life with all of the tendencies and the energy and the flow and the ups and downs that are going on right now. And how can we go ahead and not only survive through all this energy, but also thrive? It is always an honor to be able to connect with my co-host, Janet Namaste. And I'm telling you, there's no one better to talk about being an empath and what it's like and how do we navigate that than with my co-host, Janet. She is an intuitive healer, a hypnotherapist, an empowerment coach, someone that has made a huge impact on my journey to knowing self. And you know, that word empath, I didn't understand what that was just a few short years ago. Then I started hearing it and realizing that I have empathetic tendencies, as do a number of people in my life. And it can be really challenging when we're feeling all of those emotions of others. So today we're going to hold space and explore, what does it mean to be an empath? And then how do we go ahead and live a life here on this planet as an empath? So it'll be a really deep conversation that we hope will help you heal and better understand yourself and to go ahead and thrive in life. Host Janet Namaste is logging on, and I look forward to diving deeper into living a life as an empath. Hello, my beautiful sister.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you.
Oops. Oh, so blessed to be here today. It's an amazing topic that we're speaking about, especially during this time and age where everyone is highly sensitive and no one knows what is the truth, what isn't the truth, and everything is getting misconstrued. So it's really tuning into yourself. So this topic is actually one of my greatest passions, being an empath.
Well, what I was sharing with audience before your arrival, that there's no one better to have this conversation with than you, and how you've greatly affected my journey. I didn't know there was such a thing as being an empath. That had never crossed for me. So it would be really, really helpful. Now that I have awareness, I think if we started by sharing with others, what does that mean and what does that feel like, so folks can identify if they have some tendencies or maybe someone they know and love does.
Oh, absolutely. So there is a difference between having empathy and being an empath.
Do tell.
And being an empath is being different than empathetic. Empathetic and empathy is really when we feel for someone, when someone is going through a difficult time, you feel for someone, your heart goes out to them, your love goes out to them. You ask, how can I support you during this time? Being an empath is actually absorbing the emotions of the physical, emotional, mental aspects that the other person is going through, and you feel it in your body.
That is huge, Janet. And I want to pause a second and really not only let that land, but I want you to explain that again, because I did not know this differentiation. So what I think I heard you say is that you can feel empathy, which to me almost sounded like compassion, like, oh, I feel that person. And it's like an external thing. Whereas when you're an empath, you're actually, I heard the word absorb.
That is the difference. So an empath, there are different, that's beautiful. You said it amazing. As an empath, it's as if we are sponges. We're absorbing what is around us. We absorb the molecules around us. I mean, we're energetic beings, right? And there are certain patterns that are within us that have to do with the essence of who we are, and certain patterns that we've seen for a very long time that we maybe were exposed to. And those patterns, after a while, they play in our subconscious and it becomes like an archetype. But people that, and the archetype could be an archetype of a mom, an archetype of a queen, an archetype of a caretaker, an archetype of a narcissist. These are all archetypes because it's patterning that is accumulated for so long that people kind of walk around as it's part of their personality. Yet, deep inside, as being an empath, is something that is it's a little bit different, because the brain is wired differently. The neurons, like the neuron systems, like the cells, is the brain mirror neuron system. The cells are actually, there's a specialized group of cells that are responsible for emotions, for feeling things. And as a child, I was labeled as being like, oh my God, you're so emotional, you're overly sensitive, and so on and so forth. This is something that is within us. We can't help as an empath to feel what we feel. And this is something where it's as if these cells inside the brain is on overload. It's hyperactive. You know, like there's something that's, it's overactive, basically. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it is a negative thing if something is overactive. It allows us to utilize that sensitivity to the greatest benefit of helping others, but it's through compassion, not pity. And not being, when you're aware that you're an empath, you then can set different boundaries so you don't absorb the energy of others, because otherwise we go down in a vicious, like, you know, in this vicious tunnel of thinking that there's something wrong with us because we feel so deeply, because we love so deeply, because we fear so deeply sometimes. Like, what is it? And it's important to know that, like, our personalities, archetypes, right, is the way that we are presenting ourselves, or it is something that it could be a survival skill as well. Sure. But being an empath is something that is inborn. That is inborn. And we have so many on the planet right now, and people that weren't even aware of it, that they're empaths because they feel so deeply, especially when we pressed the pause button during the time of COVID, right? During whatever the past 20 something months, we had an opportunity to really become and go introspective into the essence of our soul. And during that moment in time, we were able, if we chose, to differentiate which emotions belong to me and which are the emotions of others. But if we're constantly bombarded with, like, media and other people's opinions, and being surrounded by those that are in deep fear, we will absorb a little bit if we are not aware and awake, you know. And it's important to be aware of these kind of emotions and to embrace, but to differentiate what belongs to us and what belongs to someone else.
Love this. Love
right?
it. And I want to get into, and I know we will, I want to get into convo about how do you walk this planet as an empath. But before we go to some, support for our brothers and sisters, I would love to understand, is it you're an empath or you're not? Or are there levels that you experience as an empath? You're a deeper empath than I am, that kind of a thing. Or is it yes or no, light switch, or are there levels of being an empath?
When about 15 years ago, I read this book, and there's actually a quiz, an empath quiz. And her name is Judith Orloff, and she's amazing. She's a doctor, she's a physician, and she actually has a self-assessment. So I have it printed out here. So I'm going to, if you guys have a pen or paper, then just all you have to put is Y or N, Y for yes and N for no.
Love this. How many questions are there?
Well, there are 20, but I can do it really quickly. Okay. When I do these talks, I actually have to really as a hypnotherapist, almost like, you know, put it in my mind, speak slower, because I tend to speak very, very fast. So I will do this as quickly as I can. But I want our audience to really be able to assess, without judgment though. Okay. That's putting it out there. So question number one, and this is once again, Judith Orloff's, empath self-assessment. Have I been labeled as overly sensitive, shy, or introverted? Y or N? Do I frequently get overwhelmed or anxious? Do arguments or yelling make me ill? Do I often feel like I don't fit in? Am I drained by crowds and need alone time to revive myself? Am I overstimulated by noise, odors, or nonstop talkers? Do I have chemical sensitivities or can't tolerate scratchy clothes? Physical, right? Do I prefer taking my own car or my own form of transportation places so I can leave early if I need to? I always do. Do I overeat or undereat to cope with stress? Am I afraid of becoming suffocated by intimate relationships? Do I get startled easily? Do I react strongly to caffeine or medications? Do I have a low pain threshold? Do I tend to socially isolate? Do I absorb other people's stress, emotions, or symptoms? Am I overwhelmed by multitasking and prefer doing one thing at a time? Do I replenish myself in nature? We're almost done. Do I need a long time to recoup after being with difficult people or energy vampires? Both of us are like nodding. Do I feel better in small cities or in the country than large cities? Do I prefer one-to-one interactions or small groups rather than large gatherings? And that's it. So if you've answered yes to 1 to 5 questions, you're partially an empath, you know, you're least partially an empath, you know, responding 6 to 10 questions of yes, then you're like right there in the middle. You feel, but you help, you know, you hold healthy boundaries, and you're wired differently. You're wired, you know, solely for your, you know, yourself. Responding yes to 11 to 15 means you have strong empathetic tendencies, and answering yes to more than 15 means you are a full-blown empath. And I have to say, the biggest test was what we all went through in a collective, right? For the, you know, isn't that great?
I am so, that you had an assessment is just classic. I answer my question, but then I got to find out for myself. And Janet, and I was hoping this for our shared community as well, because it's not only for self, but
right.
me, curiosity for others. It was my niece, one of my brother's 2 daughters, that I first understood what an empath was. And she is a full-blown, you know, 20 out of 20. And trying to support her as a young college student, you know, how do you go out into this world, which could be a very scary place as an empath? So I answered the assessment, but I was thinking of other people, and
of course.
so much compassion and new understanding for some other people in my life that I'm now going to have a little more patience for.
Certainly, because things are what we may hear, you know, at a 10 decibel level, right? They may hear at 100 decibel level. It's just being highly sensitive. You know, my daughter was, and I don't know if many of you know this, but my daughter was born blind. And she's my greatest miracle on this planet. Besides, you know, just being here, this is a miracle. If we just look all around us, everything is a miracle. She can see, but it was through miraculous surgeries. You know, it was integrative medicine as well. It wasn't, it was Western and Eastern. So that's when I left the corporate world and I dedicated my life to the work that I do now. But she's highly sensitive to so many things. Like both of my children, like my son also had surgery at like 6 weeks old. Both of my kids went through many different challenges, absolutely. But I have to say that when we think that there's certain limitations, on the contrary, other senses that we have that are within, yes, they become hyper, it appears that it's like hyperactive or oversensitive. But in reality, if you know how to navigate through that and you have people around you that get you, then you are one of the greatest assets on this planet, because you end up becoming an incredible healer to others by empowering of just being. It's not about preaching. It's about showing your way, of what you had figured out. And perhaps maybe it inspires somebody else so they can figure out their way. It's being highly sensitive comes with its challenges, of course. I'm definitely an empath, although I could be out there on stage with 500 people to thousands in the audience, but then I need my introvert time. I am a homebody. Then I could be out at night clubbing or whatever it is. I'm not out clubbing anymore, but then we need some time to go within, and we need some time to recoup. And because it's all about energetics. And there's different types of empaths. There are people that physically can absorb the elements. And speaking on a healing perspective, I've been doing, professionally, like healing work for 20 years. There were times where I would feel the energies of people. Like if they have something going on with their wrist, I will feel it in my wrist. But most importantly, as a healer, because empaths are healers, believe it or not, they have to say, okay, this pain in my wrist does not belong to me. This belongs to someone else. But it's there just to remind you to connect to compassion, not pity. And that is the most important thing. So there's physical empaths. There are empaths that are very in tune with Mother Nature. As when they walk, I know it sounds silly, but it really isn't. It's like when they're out in nature, they can hear the birds, they can feel the animals. These are people that are animal communicators. The best dog trainers, like Cesar Millan, who I love and follow, and he's awesome. The dog whisperer. This is an empath. It's an animal empath. Those that can absorb emotions. Those are emotional empaths. And that's my son is an emotional empath. It's something where they're both uber intuitive, but there are times where it's so overwhelming. And I'm like, all right, Mikey, is this yours or does this belong to somebody else? Because he feels things very deeply, very deeply. And I think it's the greatest asset if you know how to navigate through. Another thing.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
This topic is just so inspiring, and I'm so thankful that it came up today. And also Mariama has joined us today. Hey, sister, so wonderful to have you with us today. And thank you for the beautiful space you provide through Raw Real Talks. You are an angel.
Hello.
So I'd love to understand. I didn't know there were different types of empath.
Yes.
It struck me because my bestie, she is so attuned to nature, and that's her happy place. When she'll go to Central Park and feed squirrels for hours. And I'm like, we're in New York City, stop feeding squirrels. She loves animals. And I know that's when she's happy. So I didn't understand that some people could be emotional, some people could be with nature, some people could be with animals. So that's also very helpful. I would love to understand two things. One, and this part later, how do we support an empath? Okay. But before we go there, if you are an empath, if you ranked 10 or higher or whatever number we want to pick on the survey, what are ways we can prepare to engage, and what are ways that we can release after engaging?
Beautiful question. Another empath, by the way, is a food empath.
Ooh, is that somebody that gets really excited about food?
No, that's a foodie.
Oh,
Which I certainly am a foodie.
I'm excited.
Definitely a little, that's the bougie in me, right? But I love yummy food. But I also am very sensitive to different foods. Like it's like with the in the actual assessment, it said, are you overly stimulated with caffeine or other things, and chemical sensitivities as well. I can't eat food that is processed. I just can't. My body rejects it. I can't eat foods that have, white cane sugar that has something like that, because my body goes into inflammation immediately. My body rejects those foods. There's even wine, which is interesting because my maiden name, believe it or not, it means grapes in Russian, and it's if you translate it, it's like the city of wine. But I can't drink wine anymore because we're sensitive to those chemicals that are inside. So there's food sensitivities, which I don't know. I was born in the 70s, and now there weren't so many allergies as there are now. My daughter is allergic to cashews and tree nuts, and everyone I know has some sort of aversion or food allergy or sensitivity. Almost every single person I know. Or even allergic to even things that are out there in, pollen or hay, they have hay fever, all these different things, because our bodies, it's important that we keep our vessel in is the most, like, give it not only great nutrients, but spiritual nutrition as well. So that's what I wanted to mention. But tips that I would give for the empath is to be, for those, or it's for supporting an empath, right?
Let's do supporting second. If you are an empath, what are ways you can prep and what are ways you can recover?
Yes, certainly. And know this is really something that we can speak about actually for 10 hours. There is a magnetic pole. This is the law of physics. As above as to below. There's the North Pole, there is the South Pole. That's the way the Earth is rotating on the axis through this magnetic, like the magnetic poles all around, right? Now, here on Earth, we learn through opposites as well. So if you're highly sensitive and you're an empath, why do you sometimes attract someone that is an energy vampire? Because, and this is the truth, empaths feel so deeply because that's the magnetic opposite of who they are. They would never feed off of anyone. They feel for them. So the narcissist and the one that's on the other side, the polarity, will see, here's food for me. Here's food. This is the way I get my food. And they latch on. And the empath then feels the sympathy or compassion and so on and so forth unknowingly. And all of a sudden they feel drained at the end, not even realizing that someone has taken their energy. But nobody can take your energy without your permission. That is very important. No one can take your power away without you giving it to them. Got it? Now, the reason for this is because there's a magnetic power of attraction. We are magnetic beings. We're energetic beings. That's why people that are super maternal, they want to take care. Maternal doesn't mean that they have, they own a daycare and they have a billion children. It's that it's something that is inborn and they want to take care. But if you are just giving and there is no reciprocity of receiving, then you're going to feel drained at the end of the day. So the most important thing for an empath, and we'll speak one day on the empath and the narcissist. I know that Mariam and I had a conversation about this a year ago, but now we need it more than ever before to really understand, number one, that if you are an empath, you're going to be highly sensitive and it's important to step away from a certain situation that is toxic. And how do you just step away if it is a place of an environment that, let's say, you have to work in order to meet, make means end, right? Or it makes, what is the word I'm looking for?
Make meet.
Make ends meet,
I have,
whatever. Yeah, it's of making a quote unquote living.
mhm.
How are you making a living when you're in an environment that's super toxic, that you're disintegrating, basically? And one day I'll share something about a personal thing about someone that is very dear to me that literally just gave her resignation yesterday. And she's like, I really don't even have a backup plan. But she's under 90 pounds and she is brilliant, beautiful, but she is actually a healer, a Harvard healer, by the way. And it's very difficult for her to give when people are just taking, and she's not allowing space to step away. So the first step for any empath, it's basically for self-love, is to step away from the situation. If you need to take an FMLA, if you're able to, a leave of absence paid, or take vacation time from work, whatever you can safely and that you feel comfortable with, it's imperative for at least 72 hours to 3 weeks. 72 hours to 3 weeks, because you need that time to get back to yourself, really, and realize that you're not going crazy. You just have absorbed so much, and you just are in this vicious cycle of running on empty, basically. Your life force is depleting. Number 2 is surrender to your breath. And we are, that's one thing, that we're born with a certain amount of breaths till the day we die, right? Whether it be, 1 trillion, or whether it even be 10 for some. But breath is extremely important, because many times we don't realize what we breathe very fast, very quick. Exactly, the shallow breath. And when we breathe deeply and we're utilizing the force field of our both lungs, the capacity of our lungs, sometimes we're only breathing 20-30%. But if we're actually utilizing as much as we can of the lung capacity, what it does, it balances out your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. It allows you to get into a place of deep harmony and flow. And there's actually a free meditation on Raw Real Talks that's on our bio, and on mine, on Janet Namaste. And it teaches about the breath also. It's the Ho'oponopono, the forgiveness one. So that in itself, when it brings your body in a beautiful place of balance, you realize you are not what is happening outside of you. You are not your body. You're much bigger than that. And your time here on this planet Earth is limited. And the most important thing is to live in your own joy and happiness. There's a quote that they say, I think Rav Berg says it from the Kabbalah Center, you can live one day, right, in 70 years, right? One day in 70 years, or you can live 70 years in one day. You get to choose. So the second step is surrender to the breath. The third step is boundaries, which is very important. Boundaries are extremely important. Mariam and I had this conversation just the other day, and I was walking Zoe Namaste on, here in my neighborhood, and we just got into like a raw real talk, and I said, Mariama, how would you define value? And it was such an interesting conversation that we had. And one thing that really I take away from that was creating boundaries is actually then you are able really to discern your worth and your value, that you are not an extension of just what you do. What you do is embodied within you. So the approval of others and the disapproval of others shouldn't affect of how you show up. So the most important thing is setting the boundaries to those that are takers, that are users, because listen, this is a dog eat dog world, and the time has changed now that everything is on the internet. We are constantly being bombarded of, you have to look like this. This is, this is what you need to succeed. If you don't market like that, you're not going to be successful. If you don't write like this, if you don't look a certain way. So all these things are other people's belief systems. Your belief system is sacred. So creating healthy boundaries is imperative for an empath. Just say no. Empaths feel that I have to say no in a soliloquy of why they can't do something. Hell no.
No is
sorry. Peace out. And the last thing is visualize protection around you. And it's not a quote unquote woo-woo spiritual thing. Yeah, I'm very woo-woo, but I'm very real too. But visualize, like if you even like when you would dress up for a holiday or something like that, visualize like you being, in this beautiful golden, sparkles all around you, being in this beautiful orb, or visualize a mirror around you. And those energies that people look at, it will reflect right back. Something like that. Visualization can heal. Visualization can create the biggest miracles of your life. It creates dreams, it creates aspirations. But if you visualize that protection around you, which is the last step, that's imperative for an empath. You're an empath, aren't you? You feel things so deeply.
Yeah, and this has been incredibly helpful. And just so you know that I've been monitoring the comments. Thank you all.
I don't see any of them.
And thank you for your kind words about inspiration. I promise you, and Janet and Mariama and I talk about this offline all the time, you are our inspiration. So thank you for plugging in and sharing your thoughts and your feelings, because it really fuels us. So Janet, and we have some people signing off because we are at the bottom of the hour. So we don't run too over for today. If we can offer after exposure, something either broke through the barrier or we just weren't prepared to experience something as an empath, and now we have absorbed. For today, can we land the plane by discussing what are ways that we can release other people's stuff or recover from exposure and absorption?
I think like the steps that we spoke about would be a great start, but even taking a bath, if you're able to.
I was like about that. I was like,
yeah,
caring is great, but then all of a sudden, like if I now know that I'm carrying someone else's stuff, the release, like a bath to me, just that's what was bubbling.
A bath. And if you don't, exactly. And if you don't have access to a bath or anything like that, if you can even take a shower and just visualize the shower of being like magical fairy dust, and it's just sprinkling away anything that isn't yours, and just like allow everything to go down the drain. Today here in New York, we're having flash floods. It's raining more in today than it did in 1 month. It's like in a month, it's crazy. It's pretty. So even if you're here in New York, visualize the beautiful rain, like washing away all of the energies that you unknowingly may have absorbed from others or from media or whatever it may be, and allow yourself, just meditate and tune in and ask to be aligned with your truth. And journaling, absolutely, journaling.
The two things. So you just said meditate and you just said journaling. And in my head, I'm like, I wonder if meditation or journaling would help.
Yeah, the meditation, definitely download it from our, from in the bio, the Ho'oponopono, like it, and you'll love it. Just even if you never meditated before, it is just listen to the words, and it will allow things to go through you. Instead of us ingesting, we're gonna completely digest and be grateful for those experiences and honor the fact that you're an empath. It's an asset. It's not a curse, it's an asset.
Celebrate it and be thankful for, that is gorgeous. Because the whole time we've been connecting, I'm like, wow, how exhausting to be an empath. But you just shifted that. That's beautiful. I love that. So the journaling piece, I think, to download and release, that's a technique that we talk about all the time, irrespective of if you're an empath or not. And then the meditation piece, when I'm going just to relax my body and release tension, right? That's a beautiful reflection on how we can release somebody else's stuff. So
absolutely. And in the journaling prompt, because people are like, what do I write? What do I write in the journaling? Okay. A journaling prompt would be great for empath is, and this is without judgment. Where have I given my power away today?
mhm.
And it's your power is sacred. It's not about ego. Like, I'm so powerful, I'm the queen of the galaxy, you know, like, it's not about ego. It's about, it's the power that is within us. It's our life force. So where have we just given it away without refueling it back? And the second journal prompt would be, how can I refuel it back? You know, what can I do to, you know, replenish my soul now that I've realized that I've given it away? And it'll just allow the empath to be more cognizant in the future that when something does happen, it's not with a judgment. You're able to say no and walk away and understand that people are only behaving in the patterns that they're programmed in, you know, like that they're programmed in. It's not, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just time for us to all wake up.
Amen, sister. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that we have this shared space where we can do that healing work and have more awareness to be able to enjoy this next chapter instead of living in fear. So as always, every Tuesday, I learn so much from connecting with you. Your gifts, your intuition, that prayer, that meditative prayer, Hanawanapua, or whatever you call that thing. That was something you had shared with me, 2 years, whatever that was, a couple of years ago, completely changed my trajectory. So it is always an honor to be able to connect in shared space and support one another as we
Certainly.
stuff out.
Certainly. We're here for each other. We're in this world together. You know, I appreciate you. I appreciate Mariama. I appreciate everyone that's here today on our call and our talk today. And I wish everyone a blessed day filled with empathy, filled with compassion, and filled with, more than anything else, with lots of love in your hearts today and always. Thank you so much, Christin. Thank you for all that you are. Thank you.
Janet, always a pleasure. Stay dry up there in New York. And for all of you, we, again, really appreciate our shared space. It's only because of you we have a space. So we love the comments during the week. Please share this content with others that you think would be touched or moved by it. And we do monitor the input and have conversations, and it does help us decide what next week will bring. So keep them coming, guys. So until next Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, thank you so much for joining Janet and I on Raw Real Talks Healing Edition. Mariama, we love you, sister, and we'll see everyone next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.